I'm Dan Peters, and I'm an instructor at Yakima Valley College. I've been teaching English here.
Okay. So what has been the number one concern that you and your fellow faculty here at YVC have about AI?
I think the immediate concern is students not writing the stuff that they're supposed to be writing. So it's a kind of a high-tech plagiarism is the big concern. I think, or the concern that's in front of us right now. I think the biggest concern is that students will lose their voice. I've heard that over and over again in English department meetings, that we really want to emphasize how important their own voice is, because their voice is where their ideas are. And so if we're really trying to do a good job, we want to encourage students to have their own ideas and to express it in their own way. And I think the ultimate problem is students will lose that if they rely too much on it.
So have you seen a change in the way that students are using creativity?
Somebody else, I got a survey from a student that asked me that question. A little bit. It reminds me a little bit of like the internet getting going in the early 2000s when Google was really taken off, where students would, copy stuff from the internet and put it in their essays. It's really about that percentage, which is maybe one or two students in the class that are just completely using AI to complete whole essays. But it's not as often as I thought it was going to be. So it's been less of a plagiarism issue than I expected. But I think that I am seeing them use it sometimes in positive ways, especially when I'm teaching them how to use it in positive ways. I think there are students who are finding some benefit from it that I think are appropriate.
I think that there's a risk for creativity and original thought kind of as a whole in education with the use of AI?
I am, the line I come up with is AI is everything and its opposite. That was what they said about the internet. And I'm torn on that question because I think definitely AI can do creative things. So it can write songs and poems, it can write narratives, so it can tell stories, it can make music, it can draw. So it can do things we typically associate outputs with creativity. But there was an HR person that came to our, communications instructor that came last week to our class to talk about how he uses it. And his argument was, in his job, it can take some of the mundane work away, some of the repetitive, non-cognitive work, I guess you would say, or low cognitive work, and free him up to do more creative things. So if he can write memos or do short little clips on social media, that might free him up to do longer interviews with students, or to do features on instructors, or to do a photo essay that he wouldn't have had time to do before. And I think if we think about as a culture, the idea of AI replacing jobs might mean that people will then get to pursue things during the day. Income stuff is another issue, but let's say jobs are less important in the future. It could be that means people can pursue more creative things, art being one of those things. So I have a feeling that it is going to be a challenge for people to maintain their creativity, but it may also free us up.
I've heard, so I was doing an interview with my sister, and she was talking about how AI is not original, it can't generate new, information. So if students become too dependent on this, will this deplete their ability to learn and how to be original if they don't know how to find resources or discuss ideas and think for themselves?
I think the AI, when it speaks, there's this kind of, they sometimes call it an oracle. It has this authority to it that seems to be complete, like this is the last word on it. And I worry that people will start to see it as an oracle and won't, like Wikipedia, won't double check its information. So I think in terms of over-reliance on it, I think it could become the answer to questions rather than an answer to questions. And I think that's a very dangerous thing because it's could be wrong. It often is. And the way they're trained, it will only kind of double down on its flaws. So I'm a little bit worried about the misinformation, or sometimes it's called slop, that comes from it. I think that's a danger.
How do you think that AI will alter the artistic side of education?
You know, I don't know for sure. I don't see it having a huge impact, to be honest, because like the stuff that gets taught at Perry Tech, which is sort of robot proof, so electricians and plumbers and people that do heating, cooling, and instrumentation, those kinds of jobs that are very hands-on, like there's drywallers, for instance. Robots or AI are going to have a hard time replicating that. They don't have very good digital manipulation. Changing environment makes it difficult. I think art, I mean, if I'm thinking about art the way you're thinking about it, painting and sculpting and clay and drawing, those sorts of things, I don't think you get a lot from AI. You can ask it to make a painting, or you can ask it to make a photorealistic something. You can ask it to make a video. But if I'm an artist at YVC in a class, I don't think I would use any of that in class. I don't think that's going to be very helpful. You could ask it for a how to throw clay, how to work with wood or oil paints, and it can give you information on that. But I'm not sure that that it replaces what humans do with like pure art.
And what about creative writing? So specifically like poetry, short stories, stuff like that.
A lot of people are using it in this way, this creative writing way, to have a conversation with it, to build characters or do world building. I think for science fiction fantasy, people do a lot of world building, you know, setting the stage for wherever they're going to have their stuff. Sal Khan talks about in his book, the Khan Academy guy, working with his daughter who had a character, and her and the AI went back and forth on where that character should go and what that character should do, and it suggested some kind of neat ideas to her. So I think it's possible for it to be used as a kind of, I don't want to say editor, I don't think it would work very well for that, but as kind of a prompt for creative writing. That might be a use for it. I have a problem with it, but I think other people, you know, it may be because of my age, but people may get more comfortable using it that way.
And how do you foresee AI affecting creativity and education as a whole in the future?
I don't know. I'm a little bit of a boomer on that. I think that that's possible that it will free people up to be more creative. Here's my example. So I had an idea for my English 101 class for students to create a new monument for a civil rights hero and to design that. And I had no idea of what the steps would be. And I had the idea maybe 15 minutes before class, maybe a half an hour before class. So I typed in a prompt and asked AI to lay out the steps for how they would create this project or this monument. And it did this amazing job, and I had to make some changes to it, but very little. And in a half an hour, I was able to print it out and take it to class with me. So I had this creative idea. I asked AI to give me some steps that I could work with, and now my class is doing something much more creative than the essays that they were doing just in kind of the normal, pros and cons or step by step for an essay. So I do see that it could increase creativity. I think overall it might help.
Awesome. And then just the last question. What are your main pointers for using AI, and what do you want people to know about when using it?
I think using it as a tutor. So if you ask it how, or if you give it the instruction of, you're a teacher, please don't do this for me, but show me how to do this. I think that's the easiest approach. Make it your tutor, not your replacement. And I think that's my short answer to how to ethically use it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.